Alright, sharing. Okay, so the topic for today is on the source of population data ataupun demographic data. Right, jadi maknanya how do we get the data and also where do we get the data from, ya, for population data. Okay, so what is the best method of getting the information or collecting the data? Ini bukan data apa nama research lah, ini data apa nama demografi ataupun population. Tak tahu.
Online website.
Online website.
Ya.
Okay, possible. Yang dilakukan 10 tahun sekali itu apa dia?
Banci.
Banci ataupun census. Alright. Jadi banci ataupun census is the one of the main sources of population data. Okay, and that's the one that is done by almost every country in the world, ya. Dan juga bukan sahaja dilakukan oleh setiap negara, tetapi dilakukan serentak. Okay, there are reasons behind that lah, dan kita akan bincangkan kemudian, ya. Okay, so what I'm going to look at, or what I'm going to share with you today is looking at some history of population sources and all that, and then specifically we'll go into the sources of demographic data, the various sources, and that includes the registration of events or vital events, census, sample surveys, administrative data, and also there is another one actually, the traditional or non-governmental sources ataupun NGOs sources, right? Then we'll talk about a bit about errors that you commit as you go about doing census and so on. Right? Jadi that's what will be covered today. All right. Okay. Sorry. Jadi sources of demographic data, we start with looking at the census of population ataupun banci apa namanya penduduk lah, ya, banci penduduk dalam bahasa Malaysia. Right, so we'll be looking at the number of people or the population, the demographic structure, and the characteristics will be covered in census. Yeah. Other than that, we have the record of vital statistics, principally the process of births and deaths, ya, ataupun berapa yang dilahirkan ataupun kelahiran, and also how many death or mortality. Okay. And then the third source is the administrative data. Right, this is for mainly done at a local level to look at local population changes, and maybe also looking at migration, how many people have moved out of the state or the region and so on. Yeah, and the last one, just quickly on that later on, is the data that we can get from NGO or non-governmental organization or sources, and the traditional sources of population data as well. All right, so So we'll go through this, yeah, looking at the sources of demographic data for today. Right. So we start with the census dulu, eh? Start with census. Okay. So what is a census? The banci. Right. Census basically in general term refers to the process of counting or calculating the number of population, ya, untuk menghitung, maksudnya bilangan manusia yang ada di sesuatu kawasan ataupun dalam sebuah negara, right? And so it's counting each and every one of people alive, yeah, at that particular point in time. Okay, so the United Nations comes up with a definition of census, where census refers to the total process of collecting. So it's not just counting, but the process itself. Yeah? Total process of collecting. Okay, collect the information, compile the information, compiling, and then publishing the demographic, economic, and social data. Okay, so it's not just the number of people, but also information on economics, information on social, pertaining at a specified time or times, yeah, to all persons in a country or a delimited territory. Maksudnya dalam sesuatu kawasan ataupun dalam sebuah negara. Jadi selain daripada menghitung berapa manusia, tetapi juga ianya merangkumi isu berkaitan dengan ekonomi, berkaitan dengan sosial, and so on, ya, yang ada pada ketika itu. Okay, pada masa banci ataupun census dijalankan. Alright. Okay. So we have data collection pula. Census yang telah dilakukan dalam 10 tahun sekali dijalankan, kecuali ada masalah lah. Contohnya tahun ini atau tahun lepas, where we were supposed to collect the information, but we could not, ya, kita tak dapat melakukan census secara serentak disebabkan oleh COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah, otherwise the census would have been done. Tetapi sekarang ini di-extended ataupun has been brought forward to 2021, di mana masih lagi, ya, dilakukan. Alright. Okay. Now the other difference that we have for this year is that we use e-census, ya, e-census online ataupun menjawab ataupun mengisi maklumat melalui online, which has not been done before this. Ya, jadi so it makes it easy actually. When I apabila ianya dibuka nanti, I was probably one of the first few lah yang respond and completed the form online. Jadi tak susah sangat pun, ya. So ada pelbagai soalan di dalam borang census, not only berapa orang dalam keluarga, but also matters like level of education, how many are still in school, pekerjaan, pendapatan dan sebagainya. Those are covered as well. Okay, so we had census in 2010, which was conducted in July through August. And this year we were also supposed to be doing it in July, but July of 2020 actually, but it has been dragged on for a while, yeah, because of the pandemic. Okay, so let's look at the history of census, yeah, historical development of census. Bila ianya dimulakan di mana. Okay, so the evidence of census from record lah, that could be found or could be traced. Evidence of census was found to have started way back 4000 BC in Bolivia, of all countries in the world. Bolivia, telah melakukannya, but not as complex as it is today lah. Dari segi census tersebut tujuannya mungkin very specific purpose, right? Itu yang dapat dikesan. And then in China, a little bit later, about 3000 BC, China has recorded some form of census that they have started in there. Kemudian in Egypt in 2500 BC, they have there's evidence of census as well. And in India, which was much later, between 330 to 270 BC. Okay, so that's as far as the history of census in the world. Okay, tapi bentuk census itu seperti saya katakan tadi mungkin agak berlainan daripada cara dan juga macam mana census itu dilakukan. Right? The modern census, however, started in France, ataupun they call it New France and Canada in 1665. That was the first modern census. Started in France and Canada, and then in the United States of America or USA, it was in 1790 AD. Modern time lah. And in Britain in 1801, almost the same time as during the Industrial Revolution. Okay? And in India in 1872. India started quite early as well. So these are the period, excuse me, of the modern census conducted. Okay, so the purpose of census conducted was for fiscal atau financial, fiscal. Some for the purpose of drafting labor, counting the number of labor, and also for military obligations. Military obligations. They want to know how many able young men are available. So this limited to head of household. In other words, the census was conducted with the head of households and also male of military age. Maksudnya orang tua tak masuk lah ketika itu, because this is talking about able-bodied young men who could join the military, tentera. Also involve taxpayers or adult citizens as well. So in general, women and children were excluded. In the past, women and children were excluded, not counted. They were only interested in specific group of people then. Okay. For example, in Rome, during the Roman Empire, the subjects of the Roman Empire, in other words, its population, will have to report to the census taker at the place of one's birth. In other words, tempat dilahirkan, right? Ataupun tempat di mana seorang itu dilahirkan. So a man would return to his father's home with his wife, or if he has more than one wife, and also the children, and physically present himself to an officer of the king or emperor. Itu yang berlaku ketika Roman Empire. Maksudnya, walaupun beliau berada di tempat lain, tetapi masa census itu dilakukan, he has to go back to his father's home, tempatnya dilahirkan. And bringing with him his wife, if he's married, assuming he's married, and children, um, uh, to the father's, to his birthplace maksud saya, ya, and present himself physically. Tak boleh online, tak boleh melalui what we have now. You have to present it himself physically in front of the officer of the king, ya, yang mewakili the king also ataupun emperor in Rome during that time. Okay. In the United States, as we have mentioned just now, it started in 1790s. There is a constitution, yeah, the 1797 Constitution requires census to be carried out every 10 years, yeah, decennial, yeah, every 10. Maksudnya, every 10 years, census has to be conducted. And that's the beginning of the 10-year, every 10 years census conducted throughout the world, yeah, started from the United States. It's not every year that you do census, ya, setiap 10 tahun. Tetapi masalahnya dengan census ini, what happened between the 10 years itu tidak dapat diketahui, ya, if you rely on census a lot. There must have been a lot of growth in terms of population and also maybe death as well, yeah, during the 10-year period. And in China, up to 1982, yes, dan sebelumnya, the exact number of population was still unknown, yeah, still unknown, although the state has been practicing household registration for a long period of time. Tak dapat pasti, yeah, exact number of people in China that time, yeah. So it was difficult, yeah, to determine the first ever census took place in China actually. Yeah, although according to record tadi, China has actually performed some form of census since the 3000 BC. Okay. Alright, so apa yang macam mana census dilakukan? Ini satu lukisan gambar mengenai apa yang berlaku semasa census dilakukan, iaitu kita ada seorang yang datang ke rumah, contohnya this person, the officer of the government lah, ya, census enumerator namanya, ya, census enumerator. Enumerator ni yang menghitung lah, tugasnya untuk menghitung, ya, and also to take other information as well. So there are many things that you can see from this picture here. Kalau dia tak bertanya dengan apa nama, look at this woman holding a knife. Apa dia takut? Ya, a stranger who comes, who enter their home, ya, and they were quite suspicious, ya. And this dog here, of course, contohnya barking at the stranger and so on. So this is the kind of apa namanya, challenges ataupun perkara-perkara yang dihadapi oleh seorang enumerator apabila menjalankan proses ataupun tugas sebagai seorang census enumerator. Dan saya sendiri pernah terlibat when I was still young, when I just finished my Form 6, ya, dahulu. Jadi sambil menunggu ataupun menunggu result keluar, I was involved ataupun bekerja sebagai census enumerator. Jadi saya tahu proses-prosesnya dan juga cabaran yang dihadapi semasa mengambil sensus tersebut. Ya, So okay, so those are the challenges. But look at this. There's some pictures I want to show you. Down here, ini ada gambar macam kaki manusia, budak lah. And then there's a head of the child here appearing from underneath the table. And then there's one behind the door ataupun cabinet over here. And those lah, ya. And those other people. Jadi dalam membuat census ini, you have to count everybody. Okay, so if you don't ask, you don't know. Kalau setakat tengok saja, mungkin yang dapat tengok adalah 4 orang, ya, more or less lah. Ya, yang ini mungkin tak nampak, yang ini mungkin tak nampak, takut. So a lot of people on the part of the household, um, bukan takut apa, takut tak tahulah, because strangers kan, if you don't introduce them, tiba-tiba datang seorang masuk rumah tanpa pengetahuan penduduk penghuni rumah tersebut. So that's the kind of thing. So there's a lot of things that you can tell from this picture ataupun lukisan inilah, ya, berkenaan dengan the wonderful effect of parents of census enumerator. So census enumerator kenalah berpakaian formal ataupun kemas, ya. Kalau pakai t-shirt biasa tu mungkin tak diterima, among other things, right? So you have to present yourself if you are enumerator, ya. Otherwise, kesannya mungkin ada, mungkin dari segi maklumat yang kita dapat tu mungkin terjejas. Maybe people will not be sharing the truth with us, ya, dan sebagainya. Jadi we were told when we were census we have to use formal cloth lah, ya, pakaian yang kemas untuk pergi jumpa family apabila melakukan census tersebut. Okay, so much for that. Yeah. Now this is a real picture, yeah, of census, how census was done in India. We do have pictures also in Malaysia, but I didn't put up here. Okay, so look at this. This is the census taker ataupun census enumerator, ya, dengan borang dia, dengan yang perlu diisi sini. And there is a tag nama perlu ada, otherwise people will not respond to you, right? And then this is the woman here, represents the family more or less, probably the eldest person in the family who could provide him with the information required. Okay, ini pun sama. Jadi census ini boleh jadi perempuan atau lelaki, right? Same thing, yeah. So she's taking the census, and the children and so on, yeah, sitting around her, and presumably this is the man who responds to the questions. All right. Okay, so most countries in the world actually have taken or have done or conducted census between the year 2000 and 2005, and this is quite recent lah, just sharing with you. Tapi ada juga negara yang tidak ada, ya, no recent census done. Jadi for example, if you look at color ini tak apa, this is supposed to be gelap sikit lah, ya. Where these countries here, they have population register. In other words, they do it every year in a way, ya. Jadi ada record population register for these countries, and then other countries, they have including America, South America, Australia, Asia, Soviet Russia, some Middle East countries, and so on. Yeah, even in Europe, they have done the recent census. Yeah, in 2000, in the year 2000, according to this map here lah, right? kecuali di negara-negara di Afrika and some parts of around here yang did not show any census done during this period. Jadi walaupun saya katakan awal tadi every country should be doing should have census done once and every 10 years, tetapi ada masalah-masalah tertentu mungkin yang menyebabkan sensus itu tidak dilakukan ya pada masa-masa tertentu. Right? Sebab sensus ni first of all sensus ni is not cheap ya, mahal. It involve millions of dollars atau ringgit untuk melakukan sensus tersebut. Kerana apa? Kerana ianya melibatkan macam-macam. First thing is you have to hire enumerators, right? You have few thousands enumerators you have to hire to collect the information, and then also you have to provide supporting materials ataupun vehicle, kenderaan, perahu panjang dan sebagainya, ya untuk pergi ke kawasan-kawasan tempat manusia tinggal lah, ya. So you have to buy or hire vehicle, ya kereta ataupun beli ataupun menyewa boat, ya, cost petrol dan sebagainya, right? Allowance, officers and so on. Jadi mahal sebenarnya, ya. It's a massive exercise. That's why you cannot do it. You can't do it every year. Kalau boleh setiap tahun lagi bagus kan? You have a complete information. But because it is very costly, maka ianya hanya dilakukan 10 tahun sekali. Seboleh-bolehnya. Okay. All right. So what are the criteria for census? Okay. So it is individual, yeah? Individual counting. Everyone is counted. You look at this cartoon on this side. Boleh tengok kah?
Boleh.
Okay. Apa dia kata situ? Hurry up. Isteri tu lah. Oh, I will have to put you down as 1.5. Maksudnya, isteri dia nak melahirkan ataupun isteri orang lah. Assuming that's the numerator ataupun the husband, yang baru nak melahirkan anak, jadi dia kalau dah dilahirkan ianya dihitung, ya. Tapi kalau belum dilahir tak dihitung, not even 1.5, yeah? Not even half. Okay, so it's counting those who are born and alive. Right? Everyone is counted, old, middle age, young, baby, infant dan sebagainya. Okay, itu yang pertama, ya. So everybody is counted. Yang keduanya is that it is universal, ya. Universal maksud topik yang ada pada sensus itu mengikut yang di-showkan oleh United Nations, ya, bangsa-bangsa bersatu, the standard topics and census, ya, untuk setiap negara. The reason behind that is kalau tak standard, tidak sama, maka agak susah untuk membuat perbandingan, ya. It's difficult for us to compare one country with another countries, for example, if you don't use the same standard. Itu sebabnya. Okay, tetapi itu talking about topics yang basic and must be there. But on top of that, also some countries may have extra ataupun data yang lebih daripada itu for their own purpose, for their own needs, ya. Tetapi standard topic itu must be covered. But anything extra is optional, right? So this is using the United Nations list of recommended items, and also it is done. Another characteristic of census, it is done simultaneously. serentak, right, simultaneously. Okay. Nah, sebagai contoh, census conducted throughout the country, example on the 5th of July 2000. Jadi itu sebabnya nak menggunakan ataupun you need to hire a lot of enumerators because you have to do it over a short period of time, and you have to cover in terms of coverage it is throughout the country. That's why it involve a lot of people. Okay, nah, itu data collection, and then you have to process it dan sebagainya. Okay, key in the data. Sekarang ini kan key in data dekat komputer and so on. Yeah. So it is simultaneous, serentak dilakukan di dalam negara dan juga more or less secara relatifnya juga dilakukan di seluruh dunia more or less about the same time, middle of the year during the census year, for example. Okay, so the fourth one, it is periodic. Nah, ini telah saya nyatakan awal tadi. We are following the one that started in the USA in 1797, Constitution yang memerlukan sensus itu dilakukan 10 tahun sekali. So this is standard for all nations. Okay. Jadi isunya seperti yang ada pada apa nama tadi map-nya, peta tadi yang saya tunjukkan awal tadi. Not all countries can adhere to the criteria. Tak semua negara, tetapi digalakkan untuk dilakukan seperti itu. Some countries are too poor even to conduct census once in 10 years. They just couldn't do it. Okay, and that was happening in some poor countries of the world. Okay, so we move on. So who are included in the census? Jadi saya kata tadi kalau kita ikut kriteria tadi is individual kan, so everybody must be counted. Jadi caranya adalah walaupun kita kata everybody is counted, how do you do it? Macam mana nak menentukannya? So ada dua mode ataupun methods yang boleh digunakan. Okay, yang pertama adalah berdasarkan kepada de facto population. Okay, de facto population ni maksudnya kita menghitung orang yang ada pada sesuatu tempat, yang berada pada satu tempat pada hari banci tersebut. People who are in a given territory on census day. Okay. Alright. So, yang keduanya adalah ini lebih kurang sama dengan style orang Rome dulu yang kita lihat awal tadi. The de jure, I think I pronounce it right, de jure population. Ini merujuk kepada people who legally belong to a given area, regardless of whether they were there on the day of the census. Okay, maksudnya kalau you biasa duduk situ for most of the time, throughout the year, then you should be counted as belonging to that area. Okay, jadi even if you are, for example, during the day of the census, you may be out of town, you may be out of of your house, you may be in some other district, or you may be overseas or something like that. But you will still be counted, as belonging to that particular area. Okay. Kalau dibandingkan dengan de facto population ini, yang di sini we only count people who were there during the day of the census. Dia tidak menghitung orang yang di luar daripada tempat tersebut. Okay, so anybody outside, contohnya, were not present during the census day, kalau ikut de facto itu tidak dihitung. Tapi kalau ikut cara yang satu lagi, yaitu de jure population, seorang tersebut ataupun semua orang ahli keluarga contohnya, walaupun mereka berada di tempat lain pada census lakukan, mereka juga dihitung, right? So people included in census is on the basis of usual residence, ya, usual residence. Now, sekarang ini may become a problem actually, particularly among people who have dual residency ataupun dua tempat tinggal lah maksud saya, ya. Contohnya saya sendiri, saya ada rumah di kampung. I have my own long house in Seratok, for example, where I was born, and I have a home there. But I don't. I seldom go back to my own home. But I consider that as also tempat saya lah, right? Kebanyakan masa ianya kosong, tak ada orang. It's only when we take our leave, we go back home, baru kita tinggal di situ. Otherwise, there's nobody staying in that house or long house. Yeah, satu unit. And I have a house also in Kuching, for example, right? So I live most of the time, I live in Kuching. But if you use the de facto population approach ini, kalau saya on that day saya berada di kampung, ya, di rumah panjang contohnya. Okey, maka saya akan dihitung di kawasan Seratok, bukan di Kuching, right? Walaupun kebanyakan masa saya berada di Kuching, most of the time I belong to Kuching, for example, right? Jadi ini ada perbezaan, ya. So which approach you use, you have to be clear about that. Okay. Tapi kita di Malaysia, census yang kita gunakan di Malaysia, saya rasa banyak menggunakan de jure population, ya. Maksudnya you ask the person or the respondent berapa orang ahli keluarga, so they will include ahli keluarga yang mungkin tak berada di rumah pada ketika itulah. Okay, so people included in census on the basis of usual residence, which is roughly defined as the place where a person usually sleeps. Okay, kalau dia pergi travelling tu, itu masuk juga sini. Tapi kalau mengikut ini, kalau seorang tu pergi travelling, dia tak akan dihitung di situ. That's where the problem is, ya. Jadi, so it has to be sorry. Okay, am I still with you? That's why ada terkena kabel ni macam takut tercabut. Okay, masih ya? Okay, alright. So that's de facto and de jure population. Two differences, two different. This is another just to illustrate the difference between de facto and de jure tadi, ya. De jure itu more or less in law, mengikut undang-undang, more or less, ya. De facto itu mengikut fakta, ya. Contohnya those who stayed in the household last night, for example. So that if that is the approach you take, then you have to stick to that. And then the other one is the in-law tadi, ada people who usually stay, yeah, in the house, usual household residence. Itu. So we have to be consistent lah. Kalau kita gunakan de facto, kita gunakan de facto secara keseluruhannya. Kalau guna de jure, dan kita gunakan de jure. Kalau kita campur-campurkannya, ianya menjadikan masalah. right? Some people will be miscounted ataupun double counted. You know why the problem double counting is? For example, kalau seorang let's say seorang enumerator go to a house and count the number of people according to the usual place of residence. So whoever who may be outside of the home during the time, tetapi memang part of the resident, he will be counted. Sebaliknya, kalau kita gunakan de facto ni, right? Jadi, let's say one of this person, husband ke, was on traveling to district A ataupun town A, for example. Jadi kalau ikut ini, he will be counted here, but he is already counted in here juga kan, right? So kalau kita gunakan another way, if we're not very clear on how people should be counted, jadi masalahnya mungkin timbullah situ ya. The one person can be double counted ataupun miscounted pun boleh ya, tidak terlepas untuk dihitung pun boleh juga jadi ya. So neither here nor there, for example, right? So at the end of the day, when you total up the population size ataupun number of people in the country or in the state could be less or could be more, yeah, based on whether or not you have committed errors in your enumeration tadi lah. All right. Now, moving on, zooming in on Malaysia ataupun sebelum Malaysia, right? Right. So we look at the history of census in Malaysia. Okay. When did it start? It was assumed, ya, ataupun yang non record lah. It started during the colonial period, ya, masa British dulu, in Penang, Singapore, and Malacca. Why? Because these are the places where you have the colonies, yeah, more or less the office and so on, yeah. Penang, Singapore, Malacca. Some other parts of Malaya or Singapore ataupun Malaysia belum lagi, ya. So it started early in these three places. It was done by the police. So bukan enumerators, ya. Yang membuat penghitungan ketika itu adalah pihak polis. Kenapa pihak polis? Maybe for security reasons, I don't know. Just recorded ya, polis yang melakukannya dan bukan enumerators yang ada sekarang ini. Mungkin sebabnya adalah untuk census dilakukan for security reasons, ya. And then also not all population could be counted. And also limited information was obtained, right? So contohnya in terms of ethnicity, gender, and age tidak diambil kira ketika itu, ya. So the focus is on ethnicity, on gender and age. Other matters tidak diambil kira. So it was very simple lah, ya, simple process of enumeration ataupun census. Ya, hanya fokus kepada perkara kecil saja ataupun limited information saja. Alright. And then in 1871, much better structured census was conducted, and then it has and then also follow up from that, ya, setiap 10 tahun since then dilakukan menggunakan more structured census. Ya, jadi yang sebelum ini not very structured, not so limited, while as in since 1871 yang lebih structured. Ya, started in the Strait Settlement ataupun negeri-negeri selat in 1871. And then 10 years later also on the same states, ya, negeri Strait Settlement ataupun negeri-negeri selat. And then by 1891, 20 years later, it was extended to the Federated Malay State, yes, the Strait Settlement and the Federated Malay State, right? And in 1901, also another one conducted, so every 10 years, right? And then by 1911, it was extended to the non-federated Malay State. In 1921, it include Brunei, ya, termasuk Brunei. In 1931, also another one, 10 years later, and then there was a big gap, yeah, from 1931 to 1947, yeah, the Malay Federation dengan Malaysia. Okay, and then we have the Malay Federation 10 years after 1947. In 1957, there was a census conducted among the Malay Federation. But that was before Malaysia was formed, right? Yeah, so it was only when Malaysia was formed, the first census conducted throughout states in Malaysia was, including Sabah and Sarawak, was in 1970. And by this time, Singapore was no more with Malaysia. dah keluar daripada Malaysia. Okay, so tak sempat, ya, Singapore as far as Malaysia is concerned tak sempat untuk dihitung dalam populasi Malaysia, maksud saya. Okay, so excuse me, 1970. Then 1980, 1991, what else? 2000 and 2010, and the last one ongoing is, of course, this year lah, 2020, 2021. Okay, jadi itulah more or less the history of census in Malaysia. So we have gone through so many census in the past. Okay, so 10 years, every 10 years dilakukan periodic, ya. Dari segi kontennya, ya, census content seperti yang dinyatakan awal tadi, all countries are required, ya, in other words, standardized, ya, standard topic. All countries are required to adopt the content in the UN list of topics. Okay, so seboleh-bolehnya, ya, as much as possible mengikut senarai yang dibuat oleh United Nations. Tapi kalau nak lebih daripada itu, that's up to the country itself. Okay. Alright. So why? Kenapa? What is the reason behind that? The reason behind that is because, as I said before, if you do not follow the list, standard list tadi, it is difficult for us to compare between countries or between states and so on, ya, kalau nak bandingkan. So that is the main reason, ya. So data ini boleh dikaji dan dibuat perbandingan di antara negara-negara di dunia. For example, if you want to to know in terms of population growth, right? Kalau tak sama, maka susah kita nak bandingkanlah negara pertumbuhan populasi di antara negara. Sama juga dengan birth rate, death rate, migration, and so on and so forth. Okay. Dan dari segi ekonomi mungkin dari segi GNP per kapita and so on. Itu perlu menggunakan topik yang sama lah sebagai contoh ya. Alright. So the topics are geographic and internal migration characteristic, ya, melihat kepada migrasi, ciri-ciri migrasi, household and family characteristics, right? So contoh tempat tinggal dan pernah pindah ataupun tidak, ya, berapa orang dalam satu keluarga, okay, is it a young family or older family and so on, yeah. And also demographic and family characteristics, okay. Dari segi umur, dari segi gender, and fertility, mortality, ya, topik berkenaan dengan kadar kelahiran ataupun mortality, yaitu berapa orang anak, ya, bagi seorang perempuan, for example, and also the rate of mortality, berapa orang kematian dan sebagainya, berapa umur, even termasuk umur kematian. That's why we'll talk about this more detail later on, yaitu age of death tu direkod, ya, dalam oleh jabatan yang berkenaan. Okay, bilangan anak yang dilahirkan juga ada direkodkan. Termasuk and then you have educational characteristic pun termasuk dalam senarai topik, ya, tahap pendidikan anak, adik keluarga dan sebagainya. Economic characteristic, pekerjaan, pendapatan, ya, all included. International migration characteristics, ya, bukan saja dalaman tetapi juga between countries, whether or not you have people who migrated from other countries to your country ataupun your residents of your country migrating out to another country. This is the international migration. Dan record of disability, yeah, disability characteristics, if you have family members who are disabled, and dan juga jenis disability tersebut. So this is important. Jadi data-data ini boleh digunakan bukan untuk tujuan perbandingan saja, tetapi dari segi tujuan untuk polisi kerajaan, ya, bagaimana untuk membantu disabled persons, how many people are disabled, and so also dari segi berapa orang yang dari segi level of education will also be helpful, ya, to plan policy, ya, untuk pembangunan di dalam negara tersebut. Okay, alright. So those are the topics, yeah, covered in census. Okay. So what are the steps in conducting census? As I said, the process of taking census can be taxing, can be complicated. So you need to, the census taker must be competent, ya, mahir dalam melakukan tugas sebagai seorang enumerators. So you have to train them, ya. So first of all, you recruit, ya, recruitment of census taker ataupun nama umumnya enumerator. Kemudian selepas mereka berjaya ditawarkan sebagai enumerators will have to be trained. Okay. Jadi who are these enumerators, census takers ini? Jadi census takers could be can be from government, existing government servant, but preferably somebody yang mungkin tak ada kerja, tetapi mempunyai kelayakan dari segi level of education, for example, at least SPM, ya contohnya, ataupun sekarang ini mungkin lebih tinggi lagi kelayakannya, I don't know, ya, but at least SPM, ya, ataupun STPM, diploma, degree sebagainya. Okay, jadi so they have to be recruited, and then they have to be trained, right? Training of census takers. Okay, so lepas training, let me relate my experience. Saya dulu, I was involved actually in agriculture census, dan we have to go through the process. Macam mana nak, asking question, how do you ask question, macam mana nak tahu maklumatnya lebih lanjut. Kalau orang tak faham, contohnya responden tak faham apa soalan tu, kita kena jelaskan, kena terangkan, ya. So it's quite complicated, ya. But interesting, by the way, ya, interesting process. Jadi sebabnya adalah kalau the way we ask question itu juga akan will determine the kind of answers that we will get, right? So we have to be careful. Yeah. For example, if we ask a question, you may get answer A, but if you ask a question in a different way, you may get answer B, for example, right? So make sure that you are getting the right answer, yeah, getting the right information. I mean, yeah, from the representative of the household. Then after that will be pre-testing. Pre-testing ini melibatkan the questionnaire, if you will, ya, census questionnaire tadi, ya, yang digunakan untuk mendapatkan maklumat. Oke, ataupun borang sensus lah, ya. Jadi dalam borang sensus itu adalah pelbagai soalan di situ, termasuk the basic information yang perlu ada seperti yang kita lihat awal tadi. And the pre-testing di sini adalah dari segi soalan ataupun the wording of the questions and so on. Sebab bahasanya tak sama. Mungkin United Nations punya itu adalah dalam bahasa Inggris. Tetapi kalau ditukar kepada bahasa tempatan, bahasa Malaysia ke bahasa Cina ke dan sebagainya, mungkin maknanya mungkin berubah. So you have to be very careful. Jadi that's why you need the pre-testing. Sama jugalah you punya soalan untuk PTA ataupun FYP itu, you have to pre-test it to make sure that that people can understand your questions the way you want it to be understood. Right? Takut nanti maklumat yang kita dapat tu lain daripada apa yang kita hendak. Right? So that is the reason. Jadi ini dalam census ini sangat-sangat penting. Ya? Pre-testing. Okay. So this is limited to testing subject items, alternate wording and questionnaire, and different types of questionnaires or enumeration procedures. Jadi itu tujuannya, ya. First of all, you need to find out not only if people can understand the question, tetapi juga dari segi let's say how much time is necessary to conduct one interview, for example. Okay, so all this required. Okay, so pre-testing. And also it involves census office and their family. Usually untuk tujuan pre-testing kita tak pergi kepada kawasan yang sebenarnya, tapi biasanya kita melibatkan pekerja di census office, right? Di jabatan statistik, for example, right? Dan dia juga and their families lah. So just to test the instrument tadi, ya, the borang banci tadi. Right, melibatkan mereka ni. So kalau ianya okey, clear, ataupun ada perubahan dan kena ubah sebelum banci sebenarnya dilakukan. Alright. Okay, so the next thing is once pre-testing has been done, borang dah pre-tested, everything is okay, dah diubah, corrections, edition and all that to the form, barulah the final printing of the form. Itu dulu lah, I'm talking about yang dahulu punya. Even now also, that process will still have to be done. And when that is being borang ataupun maklumat soalan dah finalize, barulah digunakan print and also put online sekarang ni kan, untuk dijawab secara online. Okay, so the actual enumeration, inilah masanya untuk mengumpul maklumat. Ya, so penting tadi sama ada kita menggunakan secara de facto ataupun de jure. Ya, so we have to decide. Tak boleh kita campurkan dua sekali. Sebabnya adalah seperti saya katakan tadi, if you do both, you're not sure, one group use de facto, another group use de jure, maka maklumat yang kita perolehi mungkin ada kesilapan, ya, dari segi numbers, for example. Okay. So decide whether de facto or de jure, and then a direct interview ataupun sekarang ini online, you can access the form and the census online, right? And the self enumeration ini, the direct interview ini is a form where the enumerator will have to go to the individual household and do the interview. Itu direct interview. The other option, of course, is this is where in developed countries, for example, where people are educated, they know how to write and read. Jadi self-enumeration ni dilakukan. So what they do is just send the form to the address, your home address, and then the person representing the household, contohnya the head of household sebagai contoh, will fill in the information and then return the completed form with kan ada envelope disertakan sekali dalam situ dan masukkan dalam envelope dan diletakkan dalam mailbox ataupun dihantar kepada post office, ya. So that completed form will be sent to the census office. Okay, so this is applied in European countries, United States, Australia, and New Zealand. Okay, sekarang ini the new thing now is it's also self-enumeration, tetapi menggunakan, instead of using hard copy, kita menggunakan online, right? Online, borang census. That's the improvement lah, I would say. And then mungkin certain places or certain situation, you may need special procedures. Yeah, for example, among the nomads, because nomads, they are moving all the time. Yeah, they don't have a fixed place to stay. Alright, jadi macam mana kita nak buat? Jadi for this case mungkin the best would be de facto lah. Right, whoever you meet. Mungkin that's the best way for these people. Otherwise, you don't know because they don't have a fixed, place to stay. Ataupun transient populations, people who are on transit more or less, who are always on the move, right? Homeless people, how do you assess these people? Yeah, you got to have some different kind of procedures, to deal with this group of people in order for them to be counted. Right, because they don't have a home. Also, you need special procedures for household occupants who are not cooperative, yang tak memberi kerjasama. Macam mana kita nak lakukannya? So there must be a way to deal with this group of individual as well. Okay, so mungkin menggunakan pihak polis, untuk membantu bagi kumpulan-kumpulan yang tidak mau memberi kerjasama dan sebagainya. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the census department will have to think about what are the possible apa nama ni procedures yang perlu digunakan. Okay. Any questions so far?
No, sir.
Okay. Anybody has experience melakukan sebagai census ataupun sedang sekarang ni menjadi seorang enumerator? You may want to share your experience. Tak pernah, eh?
Tak pernah lagi, sir.
Okay. It's not a bad idea. Kalau tak dapat kerja nanti tapi tak dah lepas lah. By the time you complete your degree program dah tak ada lagi dah. Dan apa nama census ni. Anyway, okay. So let's continue. So so I share a little bit of my experience just now. So I know a bit about the processes and all that. Yeah. This is where it's very important. Yeah. Other than these steps are important. Yeah. But the actual thing here is this is where you get information. Yeah. So it depends on the enumeration. Right. So during the when you do the census ataupun apabila census lakukan, memang akan terdapat kesilapan ataupun errors, ya. We call census errors. The two types of census errors. Dua jenis errors ataupun kesilapan yang berlaku, yang boleh berlaku maksud saya. The first one is in terms of coverage error. Coverage error ini merujuk kepada people who are miscounted, tak dihitung, not enumerated, because he is apabila enumerator itu lakukan ataupun census lakukan, dia mungkin berada di luar kawasan tersebut ataupun he live in a place so far away from other people, for example. Jadi nak sampai ke tempat seorang tersebut mungkin agak susah, contohnya, ya. So maybe because of that dia tidak dihitung, ya, in terms of coverage, ya. So this result in what is known as the under enumeration. Okay, maksudnya somehow he is missed or he or she was missed during the counting, ya, terlepas. Ya. Yang keduanya adalah possibility of over enumeration, yaitu person may be counted more than once. Okay, contoh tadilah kalau digabungkan dua-dua sekali, contohnya enumeration tu menghitung berapa orang di rumah biasanya, so dia menghitungkan semua sekali termasuk orang yang di luar rumah. Sedangkan that person also may be interviewed by another enumerator, so happen to be present in a different location but counted again, ya, dihitung semula di tempat tersebut. Jadi seorang tersebut itu dihitung dua kali. Itu talking about one individual. So if we have several individuals who are counted, more than once, enumerated more than once, jadi ianya menyebabkan over enumeration. Okay, so under enumeration ini results in bilangan populasi itu rendah daripada apa yang sepatutnya. Over enumeration pula menyebabkan bilangan the number of population itu lebih daripada apa yang sepatutnya. Okay, over enumerated. Right. Nah, itu yang pertama dari segi coverage error. Yang keduanya adalah content error. Okay. So content error ni Contohnya apabila soalan ataupun mengemukakan soalan ataupun menanya soalan kepada individu, mungkin maklumat yang ditulis ataupun direkod itu ataupun yang diberi itu adalah salah, ya, false information, misreported ataupun misrecorded ataupun misreported. In other words, misreported itu maksudnya responden yang mungkin salah faham, misinterpret the question dan menyampaikan maklumat yang salah. Okay. Yang keduanya is where respondent has responded, dah menyatakan maklumat tersebut, tetapi direkodkan salah rekod oleh enumerator ataupun interviewer. So itu boleh mendatangkan maklumat yang salah. Okay. Alright. Tapi ada juga keadaan di mana itu bergantung kepada it happen, but sebenarnya secara in reality pernah berlaku, tapi taklah frequent enough lah. But this is happening. Respondent desire to look good in front of the interviewer ataupun enumerator. Apa maksudnya sini? Jadi kadang-kadang responden tu nak menunjuk-nunjuk lah, contohnya berkenaan dengan pendapatan bisnes dia, so on. Okay. Instead of earning ataupun dia punya pendapatan sebenarnya 10,000, tetapi dia nak to impress, trying to impress the interviewer, particularly the interviewer is a girl, for example, or young man, yeah. So he's trying to impress the person who interview him, for example. Instead of kata 10,000, dia kata 20,000 pula. Jadi itu dah salah maklumat, ya. So when you average it out later on dengan maklumat yang lain, maka information itu tak betul. Right? Jadi that can happen. Yeah. Macam-macam lah. I'm just talking about economic. It could be some other matters, for example. Alright. Jadi itu masalah. So as an enumerator, kita nak buat macam mana? Sebab itu yang kita terima kan. Kalau ada orang bohong, kita dapat maklumat yang salah lah. Right? False information. So that is the content error disebabkan oleh masalah manusia lah, ya, trying to impress or to look good, ya, dia hebat lah maksudnya, ya, in front of the interviewer and so on. Okay, another form of content error is in the form of non-responses, ya, yang tidak menjawab soalan. Ataupun inaccurate responses if people do not understand the question. Memang seperti yang kata tadi lah. So we have to be very careful. This is where the training becomes important actually. Ini pun sama tadi. Yeah, to address this issue, bukan saja interviewer yang perlu careful. Kadang-kadang interviewer ni nak menunjuk diri pula, ya. Dia hebat lah apalah, jadi kadang-kadang boleh mempengaruhi responden punya respon. Okay. Yang ini pula when there is no response, so maknanya there's no information lah, ya. Ataupun respon yang kita dapat tak betul. Itu kalau fahaman kita tak sama, ya, particularly on the part of the respondent lah. Responden tak faham apa yang kita mahu, contohnya. Jadi lain dia kita tanya, lain yang maklumat yang kita terima. So that is the problem. Ya. Okay. Let me just say, ada setengahnya. Well, this is the truth lah. Ya, story, but yang dulu ini memang betul, tapi dah ditukuk tambah sebagainya, jadi disebabkan oleh maklumat disampaikan from one person to another, at the end dia maklumat dia ada lain. But what I'm talking about is the some people, one or two individual, all men for example, ya. Jadi dia because keluarga dia besar, jadi dia tak ingat even the number of children he has, pun tak ingat, 10 ke 12 ke, right? Jadi that can happen, right? So kalau benda macam tu berlaku, what do you do? I think what you need to do as an emeritus, kalau lah kita sebagai emeritus kan, then you need to ask another person and family, mungkin orang yang lebih, tahu lagi lah tentang perkara tersebut. Okay, so you may resort to that to solve this problem. Alright. So we need to review the human error ataupun data error tadi. Okay. So one of the ways is to apa sekarang? Okay. Can we take a break now? Break for maybe 5-10 minutes. Kemudian kita sambung, Is that okay?
Oke, Prof.
Okay.
Okay, Prof.
Penat dah duduk.
Okay.
Kursi ni. Alright.